Financial wellness. Reach out to them for advice at 855-DON-GINO. And now back to your hosts, Don Getling and Gino Fronti.
And then the other thing is you mentioned there's fees. I didn't know anything about the fees. Tell me a little bit about that, Paul.
Okay, yeah. If it's a live auction and also online auctions, there's generally up to a 5% buyer's premium that the winning bidder would have to pay on top of whatever their high bid price was to get awarded the property. If it's an online auction, oftentimes you'll have that same fee, and they also charge a $2.99 technology fee, which is for using their online platform to submit the bid.
And and I see that one of the things you put on here is that there's still title costs. So is it possible to get title insurance on a property at auction these days?
You can get title insurance, but there's going to be some disclaimers on that policy. There's a lot of issues that you're going to run into or could run into. There could be some unrecorded liens. There could even be senior liens on that property. There could be unpaid property taxes. There could be delinquent HOA payments. There's just a host of things you could run into. Mechanics liens, a lot of things that aren't recorded that could come back to bite you.
Yeah, I mean, Steve, and you can jump in on this, but I don't see the value of it today. In today's market, I don't see the value. I think when properties were 50% off and there was a glut of properties at the auction, I think maybe that was a good time.
I'll tell you what, auction is a thick-skinned game. You really need to have your act together. You need to have all of your ducks lined up. Let me give you an example on Ming. Like Paul said, you get a piece of property that has got a myriad of issues with it. Now you're stuck with it. If your intention is to flip this thing, like has been in the past, a big strategy, then you really need to know how to navigate through all of that. And I don't know about you, but I don't know very many investors that aren't in the escrow industry or title insurance industry that have that education and what to do next. And so consequently it becomes a real burden. But still I think there's a place for it. You know, investors buy large groups of properties, you know, and they make those purchases. And can you imagine unwinding all of that? I mean, it's a crazy, insurmountable thought. But the bigger issue I see from my level is getting a title insurer to reinsure that after you clear all that stuff up yourself and you list it for sale in the NLS, and then you get an offer on the property and you go to sell it. Trying to get a title insurance company willing to issue an owner's policy of title insurance is not an easy thing to do. It's kind of like buying a car for cash and not getting a pink slip.
That's interesting. So that's something I didn't put a lot of thought into.
Yeah, it's an issue.
Okay, so that's something
it's
else.
It's not impossible. It just takes some finagling. Well,
again, you have to have a certain team of professionals that are prepared to deal with that, right? So, Paul, you know what's nice is, Paul, you've come on our show probably 3 or 4 times, and what I like is that you seem to be specializing with investors. You've done the research, you've done the homework, you understand the different ways they can buy or sell properties. I know that a lot of our mutual clients are investors, families that have 2 or 3 or 4 investment properties that they've purchased through you. So I know as an investor, it takes a keen eye to recognize opportunities for investment. You know, I can look in the MLS all day long, and then all of a sudden one just pops out at me and I go, that one. Something about that one is different, and it takes a specialized trained eye to do that, and I think you've got that because you're looking for investors.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's buying properties at the auction is not for the faint of heart. And there's a lot of other ways you can get good deals on properties, and I don't think for the smaller investor that's the best approach, because in addition to all the title issues that we just discussed, you're buying this property usually sight unseen, so you don't have a chance to do a physical inspection. You don't have the normal disclosures and contingencies that you would have in a normal real estate transaction. There's no termite inspection, no termite repairs. You don't even know what repairs are going to be required. So there's a lot of issues that are unknowns. And if you don't have a big bankroll and able to absorb any risk of something like that, you could be in trouble real quick.
So that brings me back to hedge funds, right? These are big dollar guys. And you know what? I think what happens with the hedge funds is if you buy 100 properties and 3 of them are losers, who cares? That's just part of the margin. Just like Home Depot has a certain amount of their margin is for theft, right? They know people steal stuff at Home Depot. They know stuff breaks. They know their employees are going to drop a $1,200 stove off the forklift and break it. That's all into the profit margin. And so when you have a hedge fund purchasing 100 homes, that's fine. They know that some of them are going to be damaged. But if it's your one avenue and this is your only money and you're going to invest in a property, I say you buy retail. So I think you get all the benefits of buying retail as a consumer, and you still are able to make a great investment here in California.
Like Paul said, there's plenty of opportunity out there. Certainly an individual like Paul who's highly networked in the community. You know, it's got your finger on the pulse of what's happening. It's easy to be able to find something, before it even hits the mainstream market. You listen to listings this morning being pitched at the CMA Network that were not even on NLS yet. Those were typical listings, but that's where you're going to find those opportunities where you can bring to your listing database. So it's important that if you are an investor in this market, to be networked with a person like Paul who has his finger on what's going on.
Well, and again, if you recognize that opportunity, Paul, and you're at the CMA, even though it's a myriad of listings being expressed, you could. I know as an investor, you kind of start labeling some places that you like. You start looking and say, hey, I really like the Racquetball Club over in Canyon Country, or hey, I think these properties in North Hollywood are selling below market. You start looking at those places, but there's no inventory. So if you're at the CMA Network and you hear about something that's going to be listed and it hasn't been put in the MLS yet, and you have that 24-hour or 48-hour heads up to the investor, that's it. We take that property off the market, it never hits the MLS, and we make it happen.
Yeah, that's a huge advantage, and we have a number of top agents in our networking group, and we learn about these listings. Oftentimes, we have maybe a week or two before they're going to go into the MLS, and we can get in and see the property and get an offer before it even hits the MLS, so that is a huge advantage.
So being well connected as you are, I'd love for you to tell us what you see happening here in Santa Clarita. I know what I personally see happening, but I also feel like we're starting to move into that time of year where we're starting to get a little bit of a seasonal change. So I want to see if we're already into an early spring just because it's nice and hot out. What happened this weekend? How do we look?
I think the market is starting to improve. It was a little slow in January. I think it's starting to pick up now. I'm seeing a lot more activity. You start looking at the last couple of years, 2013, that was a crazy year where we had no inventory and about a 25% appreciation in prices. 2014, it was a little more, conservative. We still had good appreciation. Inventory picked up a little. Right now we're at low inventory, but the inventory is starting to pick up. And I think with this warm weather, I think the market's going to be good. The other thing that was really crazy, December, we had an incredible splurge of buying. In the month of December, we had really a lot of sales that closed at year end. So who knows what's going to happen this year? I know projections are that prices are going to probably appreciate in the 3 to 4% range, but just don't know. With low inventory, all bets are off.
Yeah, I think 3 to 5% is a nice, conservative, realistic estimate. I think that's probably based on interest rates being in the mid-4s. Right now they're in the high 3s. So I think that'll stimulate buyers coming to the market a little earlier than they would. I talk to them every day. They're like, well, I was going to wait, but since interest rates are low, I think I should do something now.
They make up the difference in the rate, and there's new money. There's 5% money out there that you can go as an alternative.
3% money?
Yeah.
There's down payment assistance?
Yeah, there's all kinds of creative ways to get in the real estate market. You just need to get motivated, contact a lender and a realtor who's a team, and get this thing going.
So, Paul, tell us how to get a hold of you. What's the best way?
Best way to reach me is you can call me on my cell phone, 661-510-3042. Or email me at team@pauldinkel, PAULDINKEL.com.
One more time on your email address.
Team@pauldinkel, PAULDINKEL.com.
Awesome, Paul. Well, I really appreciate you joining us today and enlightening us on what's happening in the auctions. If you have an opportunity to look for an investment property right now and you were thinking about buying it at auction and we just kind of made you a little nervous about that, I think you reach out to Paul and get a lot of great information. Get deeper on some of this information because we were only barely able to skim it, and look for opportunities in the real estate market. So thank you for joining us today, Paul.
Thank you, Gino.
All right, well, we'll be right back, and then Steve Corner and I are going to dig into the show a little bit further, and I think we'll talk a little bit about what's going on in the world and what's got the markets with a little bit of fear.
All kinds of turmoil.
Yep. Sounds good. Be right back on the Don and Gino Real Estate and Finance Show.